Good morning, everybody. How are you? As every mother out there will know, we have our idea how the day may start, and then there is actually the day and how it starts. Morning, Alicia. Anyway, I'm just lighting my candle, got my cup of tea. I luckily picked the cards last night. How are you? Oh, let's just arrive here and have a bit of a moment. I tell you, we've had the Lionsgate portal. That was big. I've had my son wake up and he's got a slightly swollen thing from a wisdom tooth. So, you know, my day and its plan has taken a little bit of a detour. Anyway, hi everybody, how are you? Lovely to see you, Nadine and Jane and Alicia. Thank you so much for joining me. A lot to discuss today. I have got my cards already to talk about the kind of the week ahead and where we're at. And it's really interesting because the cards, let me just put everything out so I've kind of got, I know where everything is. Yeah, the week ahead is, you'll see from the cards that I've picked, they kind of are really going to reflect what is coming up for me. And I actually brought this up in a live with, I don't know if anybody follows, Feel Good and Laurie Ladd, and I'm bringing it here for further kind of discussion and also some thoughts that I have, further thoughts that I have around it. As many of you may know, if you're in Australia, you'll know currently where we're at. If you're not in Australia, let me enlighten you. We have had our international borders closed since March last year, which means you can come in and out. If you're a returning Australian citizen, and if you are a permanent resident. If you are a celebrity, you can bypass quarantine and you can get put in a special house, but you still have to do the 14 days. Okay, but that's, you know, that's the kind of thing. We can leave, I could leave if there was, you know, a situation going on in the UK. I have a daughter there, I have family there. But what would actually happen is, I think I would have to stay there for 3 months. Okay. So there's a lot of restrictions on Australian travel as a result. There's a lot of Australians who've invested in buying properties locally, which is great because we've now got this influx of really interesting and diverse people coming into the area. But, you know, the downside of that is bumping a lot of prices up, so a lot of local people can't stay here. So, you know, interesting times. So I was reflecting, and I have been on for some time reflecting on the restrictions, the lockdowns, and how we are all feeling as a result of that, kind of like prisoners in our own homes, in our own countries, not able to stretch and grow. Now, I'm going to talk particularly about Australia, but it is relevant in your country if you kind of look at it. Okay. One of the things that I learned, probably first of all, I learned this really when my time in Fintorn from a gentleman called Marco Pogačić. Where is his book? Did I put this on? Did I put that on? Where is his book? Hang on. I had it last night. Oh, I think it's next to my bed. But Marco Pogačić, I will write it in the description. Okay, I heard about him, and he is quite a fascinating man from Slovenia. And he does earth healing, okay? He has this ability to tune into the earth and find out where there's been a disruption in the energy field there, okay? So he's done a lot of work in, I'll give you an example. he basically works with ley lines and sees where there's been a disruption, where they built a road and it's disrupted a ley line and it's caused some stagnancy, or where there's been a massacre, and there's a disturbance in the land. And I remember in particular this story really I was fascinated was, and I am paraphrasing this, okay, so please, you can do your research, you can pick up his book, and I can't remember which of his books it was in, but he was talking about the ley line that flowed in Cologne in Germany. And apparently he had been tuning into it and had seen it had been disrupted, okay? It was a very powerful ley line. And it had been disrupted deliberately, and it had changed directions and had gone into this very significant town hall where Hitler used to make some of his most, biggest proclamations about what he was going to do in the world. And he was fascinated with that, and then went on to heal it and bring it back into accordance. And he does that with these things called lithopuncture, which is like an acupuncture for the land. Okay, look him up. He's a fascinating, beautiful man. Anyway, I first came into that kind of awareness through him. And then what I also did was, when I came to Australia, where I am now, I obviously came and I learnt and studied with the Indigenous academics, but I was very much opened up into a world and how they see things in the land. And they talked an awful lot about the massacres that had taken place on the land here. We know, the white Australians know about those massacres, and some of the healing that has been done to clear those spaces, but there is an imprint on this land here in Australia from colonization, the suppression, also from that Australia became this penal colony for the UK, sent all these prisoners, many who had just stolen. I mean, I was, studied with a couple of people, whose ancestors had just stolen a chicken. They were, impoverished and poor, and they were stuck on boats, and, literally that was them, taken away from their families. They had, 5 kids in Ireland. They were put in a boat because they'd stolen something. They came over here, they were stuck in Tasmania, and they never saw their family again, and they had to start again, okay? So there is a history of a great deal of suffering and pain and survival. And then, they get out and they're told, right, you can have land, but you have to clear the land. Where I live here used to be an incredible rainforest called the Big Scrub. That had to be cleared. In order to get land, you were given land after you'd served your time, you had to clear it. So these magnificent cedar trees and fig trees and everything were all taken down. Okay, there are remnants around, and people plant up rainforest trees to try and bring that life back. And we've protected rainforest trees, and down in Terania Creek, there's been a lot done over the years, but there's a lot of pain that is imprinted in this land. And I was thinking that for me, I'm always looking at how situations mirror what's going on. And for me, I was thinking, how is this lockdown similar to what must be imprinted in the land here? Like how I'm feeling right now, not being able to see my daughter in the UK, not being able to just jump on a plane and go. How is that similar to what must have been experienced on this land before, when people came here before and weren't able to hop on a plane? They had wakes when people chose to come out here. They weren't, later on when they chose to come out here. I'm not talking about the convicts that were sent out right originally, but when people chose a new life and they came out here, they would have wakes because they knew they would never see their family again. And so, there is that feeling of lockdown, of the Aboriginal people who were taken off their land and put into missions. So they were locked down, their culture was taken away from them. You know, it's imprinted in the land here. And the other thing also, I mean, Australia has not done a great job with how it treats its refugees. You know, we have detention centres that used to be here in Australia. They've now been moved off. I think there's one on Christmas Island, but they've been moved off to Manus Island. There's been huge controversy around that. So there's still this very kind of, you know, this culture that exists here of very power over. It's a very dominating, oppressive energy that still exists in the land and exists to some degree in the culture. So for me, it's no surprise at all that they're taking this very, very strict stand around who can come in, nobody can come in because there's this virus, and let's just control everybody. My thoughts around how we potentially can solve that are from my own personal experience, okay? When I was really sick, okay, and I was lying in bed and I was prisoner in my own home, let me tell you. Didn't know when I was going to get better. Didn't know when I was going to be able to get out and, you know, back and, you know, seeing friends, doing things. I wasn't able to fly back to the UK for my parents' funerals because I was so sick. You know, I have a lot in common with a lot of people right now in terms of not being able to be with family because I was so ill. And one of the things that I did that really helped was I created vision boards. Okay, I got magazines that I had, and I started to create a very simple vision board of what I wanted to do. And it's incredible how things actually started to kind of materialize. I actually remember painting this picture, which I've got in my, this painting that I did in my study of praying on the paps of Jura, which is Jura, which was where 1984 was actually written by George Orwell. And that painting came to me, and it was 3 goddesses praying on this sacred mountain called the Paps of Jura. And I decided that if I was going to get better, I wanted to go there. And so I remember I screenshotted this little ferry that goes to Jura from the mainland. And I followed on Instagram the whiskey distillery there, so I could start to connect to that culture. And lo and behold, in 2018, when I eventually got well enough to travel, I had to go and scatter my parents' ashes over in the west coast of Scotland. And there was this opportunity to go on that ferry. And I still wasn't, you know, full of zest and vitality. And I was a bit worried because I was going to have to spend the day there with the family, and we could only wander around a little bit. I wasn't going to be able to explore the island in the way that I wanted to, and it just didn't feel quite right. And you know what happened? The cottage that we were staying at, the person who was running it, we were having a chat to, and he went, "Oh, don't worry about that. My friend, can't remember his name, Bobby, he's got a wee cabin cruiser. Let me give him a phone." So he phones him and he goes, "Oh God, yeah, he can take you out." So anyway, off we go on this cabin cruiser, and he's gorgeous, this gorgeous young guy, and he paints when he's out at sea. It was extraordinary, gorgeous thing. And off we go. It's just us and the family, and in fact it's cheaper to go with him than it would have been on the actual ferry. And off we go, and because we're on this little boat, we can kind of go wherever we want. So we go and we pull into the bay where George Orwell wrote 1984, and then we go around to the Courier Vacuum, which is this incredible rush of water, because some people say it's a portal, but it's like a whirlpool of energy. It's very powerful, very symbolic. And I got there because of my vision board. So here's what some of my suggestion is to people that are really caring. And this is also what Phil, when I was asking him about this, said. He said, listen, there was a certain level of consciousness that existed back in, 1788 when they came over, Captain Cook came over here and, settled, invaded, and colonized Australia. And here we are in 2021, okay, over 200 years later. Can we choose a different level of consciousness? Have we grown? Have we evolved enough where we actually care about people in detention centres, where we care about, situations where there is people that are marginalised, where we care about our Indigenous people, where we care about people of colour, where we care about people who have different sexual preferences to the mainstream norm? If we do care about that, do we care about the women who've been, sexualised and, treated as second-class citizens, where we raise our children and, we're not remunerated for that, where, in New York, where I gave birth to my first child, you were expected to be straight back at work within 3 weeks, 2 weeks. I was fortunate that I didn't have to do that financially, and I chose always to be with my children. But can you see how we have this world that is very harsh, that does cause a lot of suffering? And I really feel at this time, we're in this sort of renaissance time. And it's really interesting because my friend Francesca Howard recently, who's got her cards, the colour potential cards, had kept pulling this card, the Renaissance. And I slightly feel, not slightly, I know we are there. And this is a time not to get caught up in the fear and the overwhelm, okay? But this is actually a time for us to dream up and envision a new world, a new reality, which is more forgiving, more loving, more supportive to everybody, more equal, okay? That allows each person for diversity to exist, for it not just to be the white man in the suit and us all fighting to get to the top of that ladder, for us to go, you know what, we don't want to be on that ladder because it was pitched and that's how it was, and we don't want to be part of that. We want to create something else. Sonia Renee Taylor, I'm going to share something that she wrote at the beginning, and actually it was originally, people thought Brené Brown had written it, but it was Sonia Renee Taylor. And I'm going to read this to you now because I think it's a very, very powerful proclamation that I know that I feel the same about. And she talked about, everybody in there, let's get back to normal so we can travel, so we can shop, so we can do all the things, okay? And this is what she says. We will not go back to normal. Normal never was. Our pre-corona existence was not normal, other than we normalized greed, inequity, exhaustion, depletion, extraction, disconnection, confusion, rage, hoarding, hate, and lack. We should not long to return, my friends. We are being given the opportunity to stitch a new garment, one that fits all of humanity and nature. And I just want to talk a little bit about nature here, okay? As always, it's all about the human. It's like, what about us? When are we going to be able to travel? When are we going to be able to, do all the things that we need to do? But, there's part of me that goes, ooh, all those planes that are not flying anymore, how are they helping to regenerate? I mean, we're very passionate about regenerative farming here. And, how is that helping to regenerate the land? How can we, see how nature is benefiting from this time of rest? And can we help the land heal from all that's happened to it with coal being ripped. I know how the indigenous people have felt about, you know, coal and nuclear, you know, uranium coming out of the land here in Australia in particular. They knew that it was trouble. I remember when we had a Native American scholar come over, and he talked about oil and how the Native Americans looked at it as reptilian energy. It was from the dinosaurs. It was so bringing it back up brought that energy back up. I always remember listening to a story of indigenous community that were brought to Sydney, and they were sort of this PowerPoint, you know what I mean, presentation, all about why we're going to put nuclear waste in your community, which is, you know, way thousands of kilometers that way, and it's all safe and it's all going to be okay. And one of the aunties, well, if it's so safe, why don't you keep it here in Sydney? Oh yeah. Nobody messing with those aunties, let me tell you. So, you know, the indigenous people here and indigenous peoples all around the world have always been deeply connected to the land. They are part of the land. They've always seen themselves as part of the land. And we in the Western world have become, you know, very disconnected from the land. But I think more so, you know, as many of us have returned to the land, we've kind of gone, oh, hang on a second, I don't want to do that. You know, when we came to our property, we thought, well, how do we want to do it? And so we're growing soil here, and, you know, we farm in a very different way to a lot of other people have. And we created a small community talk where we invite people who've got, you know, very similar ways of looking after the land to come and talk about how they manage the land. And we have foragers coming in and talking about, you know, how robust and resilient, you know, plants are that live in the wild compared to things that we grow in an agricultural, you know, hydroponic way. So this is all really important. And I feel at the moment it's about, can we manage our fear and instead go, can we see this as an opportunity to create something different? And what does that look and feel like to me? Okay. And for me, maybe it's, you know, not traveling as often. I'm happy with that. Maybe it's, you know, I don't know. But I know that I want equality for everybody. I know that I want equality for my Aboriginal girlfriend who has said to me that she's being forced to have this because she's been told that she will have her benefits taken away if she doesn't. I know that I want that equality and that power back for her. I want a power with dynamic here. And so I would just invite you all just to really sit with that this coming week, and allow that to sit and go, yeah, where does what Sonia Renee Taylor, and again I'll mention her so you can see her work, where does that resonate? Do I want to go back to normal, or do I want to find a different way to live here? Do I want to live in collaboration with my community? Do I want to live in collaboration with the land? Yeah, how do I want to live? Anyway, I'm going to get on with the reading. Lovely to see you. Thank you so many of you for joining me this morning. The other quick thing I'm going to say about the explosion that we had in Airbnb, which was great because we all suddenly got to go all these places and it was fabulous. But I remember some of the greatest trips when I've been traveling is going and living in, you know, with people in sort of little B&Bs, or in France, pensionis. Or is that Italy? I can't remember. But when you live with people who know the area and you start to see it through their eyes, and it's a whole different experience than being, you know, a regular tourist. And when we went traveling around the world, that's how we did it. We kind of lived in communities and put our kids in schools so that we became part of communities, and we started to learn and experience their world through their lives versus being a tourist where you're just sort of there and you're going and you're having your coffee or cafe and you go to all the tourist destinations. You're never quite really experiencing it. So is there a new way for us to travel and experience life that's more intimate, through getting to know communities? I mean, certainly here in Australia, there are some communities, Aboriginal communities, you cannot go in, you stop. I mean, I recently went down to Cabestry Island, which is literally just here, where the old mission was here. And my Aboriginal girlfriend was staying with me, and we went down and she said, we need to stop at the bridge before we go over and ask permission. I was like, what? She went, no, we need to ask permission. I was like, here? She went, yeah, definitely. And that was at some mental state, even though she'd lived there. And when we drove in, you know, she sort of had to stop and wave to everybody and pay her respects. In far off Aboriginal communities, you have to sit outside the community and you have to wait for somebody to come out of that community and say, who are you? Why are you here? You know, what are you doing? What are you bringing into our community, you know? And I wonder whether we need to embody some more of that as well, you know? Be more mindful, just instead of letting people just come trampling in, bringing all their stuff. You know, it's lovely. Tourism is a great industry, but can we do it in a different way? Anyway, let's get going. Okay, so I've picked all the kind of earthy cards, okay, for this week's reading. And the overarching theme for the week comes from Gaia, and I picked the cards last night, and let me tell you, when I saw this card, I just wanted to weep. So the overarching theme for the week is eternal love, happiness, harmony, fulfillment, okay? Something is resolved soon. A new page is turned as concern you have dissolves and gives way to a period of sunshine. A time to relax and enjoy life, free of worry and doubt that have cast a grey shadow over your life for the past weeks, or certainly 18 months. During the coming month or so, try to spend some time in nature. Allow yourself to reconnect with Gaia's nurturing and healing power. Immerse and surround yourself in her natural beauty, for she will help you restore balance. Harmonize your energy centers and replenish your body, mind, and spirit. It may be difficult for you to switch off at first. Oof. Can anybody relate to that? You know, when you're like, oh no, I'm too busy, I'm too busy, I can't go out for a walk. No, get out. Just do it. Force yourself, because it's not natural. It's not a natural pattern we have. And I know from my brain retraining that I had to do, and I encourage my clients to do, you know, you have to kind of, you know, you have to really kind of create a new habit. Okay, so just allow yourself, same as meditation, sitting, you're like, I don't want to sit quietly. It's like, just do it. Just do it for 2 minutes, and then 3, and then 4, and then 5. Just allow nature to harmonize. Okay, your energy centers replenish your body, mind, and spirit. Might be difficult to switch off at first, but after a few days, as your thoughts slow down, you will settle into a new, more relaxed rhythm. Make the most of this opportunity while you can. I really feel we need to settle our nervous systems. There's a lot of nervous system dysregulation around, and I get that. We're kind of in this fight, flight, survival mode at the moment. And we can't rationally think when we're in that state. So, you know, do your best to kind of find that, harmonize your system, okay? And if you need some help, reach out to me, because I'm a pro at that, let me tell you. I had to find that for myself. So Gaia, eternal love, finding that this week in your reconnection with nature, just your appreciation of nature. Yeah, just watch things. Okay, first card. Okay, so as always, for those who've never joined me before, I always do a kind of a card 1, 2, and 3, so you can choose that now. But it also flows, so you don't feel you have to, because they kind of the reading will kind of all flow into each other. So the first card comes from Laura Byrne, a beautiful Aboriginal woman down on the Central Coast. They're the salt water reading cards, and this card is bubbler crab, okay? And the bubbler crab is all about creativity, okay? Now, She says here, creating or working with mandalas, exploring sacred geometry, and spending time admiring and connecting with nature are all the ways we can discover new forms of inspiration. And I feel, in light of what was coming up for me, I mean, I saw a beautiful girlfriend of mine in New Zealand. She celebrates all the pagan festivals, and I think it's symbolic down here in the Southern Hemisphere. And she was making a Bridget's cross out of, reeds and, grasses and things like that. And I remember recently doing some weaving just with some grasses around our property, and just how lovely that felt. So maybe if you're going to get creative, either get creative in a way that you can, maybe as I, suggested earlier, but, a vision board of what do we want to see instead? Because I know how much that really informed my recovery. But what do we want to see instead? We don't want to see these lockdowns. What do we want to see instead in our world? Okay, are we going back to the way we were? Or are we actually creating something different? And what does that look like? So maybe it's an opportunity to do something like that. Or perhaps creating something in nature, planting a little garden. I don't know. Just run with it. But just allowing nature to inform you on how you can create something, just something, do something. Creativity always settles our nervous system. For me, I always tell people what I have to do. I've just happened to have one here. I was dot painting because I was taught how to dot paint by some of the elders. But I used to do dots like that to calm my nervous system. Really, 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 really helped me. And that, you just need a bamboo stick, some paint, and, a bit of paper. Just start with that, Beautiful, beautiful kind of meditation. Oh, so good. So creativity, use that to settle your nervous system, and also to think about, okay, well, what do we want to see instead in the world? Card number 2. Oh, this is such a good one. This is from the Elemental Oracle, and by Stacey DeMarco, another Australian. Oh, actually, stop it. All the cards are from Australia, apart from the last one. Isn't that interesting? First one, the Gaia decks from Tony Carmine Salerno. These are from Laura Bowen. These are Stacey DeMarco. I'm not sure where she lives, but she's in Australia. And the next lot are from Sherilyn, who's also an Australian. Hooly dooly. Okay, Australians. If I've got any Australians on here, let's get working. Okay. All right. I was always told by the Indigenous people, Australia will be a model nation. Let's show them. Let's show them. Okay. Okay, so the card that we've got, the equator. Okay, can you see that? Can you see that? The equator. Find balance in your life. Equality among people is a worthy goal. You are worth it. Do not compare yourself to others, as this is a useless task that always leads to unhappiness. There can be a happy medium. There does not need to be an extreme reaction all the time. Okay, I also want to talk to the equator, where I lived. I grew up as a child, but where everything pretty much stays the same, the light and the dark. We had kind of 2 summers, March and October, but the equator is where she says is the center and equal point of any spherical planet or body. And I really feel this speaks to equality. And if I was going to talk about that in my own person, okay, how can I become more whole? How can I stop pushing away the parts of me that I don't like? The parts of me that I'm ashamed of. It can be just in my body, or how I talk to myself, or whatever. It's like, how can I be more generous and loving and bring all of me together, instead of separating that splitting that can happen through trauma? How can I bring those parts of me back? I mean, so much of my own personal trauma recovery was finding parts of myself that I didn't even know existed, and my God, what a joy. You feel so much, when you feel whole, there is no such thing as envy, because you're like, oh, well, if it exists and I admire it in you, then it exists in me too. Somebody yesterday had sent me a beautiful personal message saying lovely things about me. And I said, well, listen, honey, if you see them in me, they also exist within you too. Everything you see in me right now exists within you too. May not be realized, may need a bit more nurturing, but it's there. Okay. So I feel this card is talking about how can we find equality within ourselves? How can we have a more power with dynamic in our relationships, instead of going into that, let me tell you what I think you should do. Let me tell you as a mother. Woof. That mothering energy can be very meddlesome. I think I told about it last week. You can get very easily tripped in a power trip, let me tell you. And my children's faces always say, get out my business, mummy, get out my business. So I'm really feeling like a power with dynamic. How can I embody that power with dynamic? How can I allow people, if I don't understand what somebody's saying or their perspective, how can I lean in and get curious instead and just listen and not speak? Another great thing that helps equality is in our relationships is something called the Imago method. I think it's called the Imago method. It's a form of dialogue to have healing dialogue versus conflicting dialogue, where it's, yeah, well, it's all right, what about you? And, sometimes if my daughter and I have a bit of a spate, we ask to have conversations with each other privately. And I will listen and I have to reflect back what she's saying to me, and I have to go, right, thank you, I heard you. And then, a good bit of time later, she can come back or I can go back and say, okay, well, this is what's coming up for me. And what it does is it allows you to resolve something that comes up between you in a really generous and loving way, which allows space for each person to be held in their issue and it to be left and resolved there. And then the other person then gets to have their time instead of this combative energy that can sometimes exist. Okay. I kind of feel that there too, Can we find ways to be more generous and loving towards each other? And that's certainly something that's really helped me. Okay, card number 3. The Language of Flowers Oracle by Sherilyn. There's some people that put some things in the comments. So I'll read those when I'm finished. We have got the Potential card. I kind of think, lovely to see you, Pete. Pete's my old neighbour. God love him. He's now down in Melbourne. Anyway, we love having you here, Pete. We love men being on here because it's predominantly mostly women. So thank you for listening. Potential. It's the Himalayan blue poppy, okay? The value of something is central to events at the moment, and you may even see your own worth recognised and rewarded. Finding what you need in order to move forward with an issue at hand is also indicated. There is a suggestion that your dreams, intuitions and feeling are correct. The answer to a question is maybe, or is it possible with more dedication? Or it is possible with more dedication. Connection with past life experiences, building on them in this life. Okay. Challenges, you may not be working with your potential. I kind of feel like it's like we're being offered this opportunity to really see our potential. I mean, can we get beyond our materialistic world? Okay. Yeah, it's lovely to have new things. I bought this lovely new cardi in the sale last week. It's gorgeous. Love it. Okay. But let me tell you, my daughter, who has very ethical principles, was like, yeah, but you could have got that from an op shop. Maybe not, but do you know what I mean? She creates all her clothes, makes all her clothes, sells them, and she will only do it from op shops. from charity shops. She buys all her fabrics. She will repurpose tablecloths, all sorts of things, and make clothes out of them. Okay, that's how determined she is to align with something that she feels so strongly about. Like, we have got enough rubbish. We've got enough stuff in this planet already, Mum. Can we start using up what we've already got, repurposing it? You know, the potential for, I know there's some incredibly brilliant brains out there you have got ideas around how to repurpose plastics, and, you know, how can we do different things? How can we be less consumeristic? Is that work? Consumeristic? I don't know. But, you know, how can we be less, you know, mindlessly consuming things instead of going, actually, do I need that? Have I already got that? I've already got 25 pairs of shoes. Or there are many people who've got lots of shoes. So I'm really looking at, can we think of our potential as humans beyond those very materialistic ways, okay? Can we stretch and go, my God, I know that I'm so much bigger than being Jennifer, mom, you know, daughter, sister, wife, you know, friend, all of those roles. I know I'm so much bigger beyond that. Can I begin to see that potential? You know, this potential of me doing this was not realized, you know, when I was at school. This was not part of the career guidance, you know, stuff. Did this exist? Hell no. Now, I think it was solicitor, doctor, you know, nursing, teaching, you know, all the things, none of which I went into. But anyway, all I'm saying is, can we look at greater potential in our education system? I was talking about all this last week in my reading, but, you know, in all these different systems, can we go, okay, well, what do I want to see instead in my medical system? Yeah, I want to see, you know, my government support, you know, lots of different types of ways for me to support my body, healing and finding wellness. Yeah, what do we want to see? What's our potential? Personally and collectively, okay? Card number 3. All right. Okay, and listen, these boys wanted to come out, boys. Calling them boys, girls, these beasties. They've been coming out to me all week for my personal readings, and they were like, we want to come out. And I was like, well, I normally only do a main reading and then these, and sometimes they were like, it's the dragons. Okay, I've got a bit of a story. I don't know if I've got time to share it because this is going to be otherwise very, very long. But anyway, I might share it another time. But we have got 2 came flying out of the deck. We've got the Earth Fire Dragon, and we've got the Earth Water Dragon. And the Earth Water Dragon was almost sort of behind the Earth Fire Dragon. I think in light of the fires that we had in Australia 18 months ago. It's a very transformative energy, dragon energy. It's very about co-creation. They really are. And also, I didn't know, I was listening to a video with Marco Pogaček, who I mentioned at the beginning. You know, he is very, he says that viruses are like dragons. They're very powerful in co-creating change. So it's really interesting that we have this, you know, very dominant virus at the moment. This is like a huge potential for change. Okay, so the Earth and Fire Dragon works with you to clear 5th dimensional ley lines, okay? It is time for service. When you give, you receive. I really feel, yeah, how can we all serve this higher state of consciousness that we would, you know, like to see in the world? I always remember when I was traveling around the world, bumping into this guy in New York, both pushing up prams, you know, at sort of 7 o'clock in the morning, or Sunday morning in New York, and I'm telling him about us traveling around the world, and he said, you know, hundreds of years ago they didn't have borders. They didn't have borders. You could just come and go. And I went, I know. I think of here in Australia where they had, you know, these trades. People just came and they traded and gave. Oh, I fancy that. Oh, I like that. Oh, look what I've got in my little basket. Oh, I'll have that. Great. Lovely. Give. Win-win. And off they went. And then in came this colonization, this energy of, let me tell you, we're going to tell you how to live your life and do what you need to do. And you native people have got no idea. We know what we're doing. Little did we know. Little did we know. Little did we know. But we do now. But we do now, which is why this is the power that we have to create something different. Okay, vastly different to what we have. And the earth water dragon creates the foundation for new growth. So I kind of feel like that dragon is a fresh start is coming, new opportunities, nurture your ideas and harvest the abundance. This is a time to dream your utopian dream. What would be in it? How would you like people to treat you? How would you like to be treated? How would you like to experience the world? Okay. Beautiful, 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 beautiful opportunity for us all to live in a new way. Anyway, I'm just going to have a very quick look at some of the comments. Oh, so many lovely people on this morning. Caring and respecting is so important. Yeah, it's so important for us to respect our beautiful Indigenous people. Oh, interesting. Morsey Creation says ascension will come from the east to the west. Yeah, I feel that too. Certainly when we were at Uluru 2018, they had a huge thunderstorm that they hadn't had for, I don't know what, it was on the news and everything. My husband was walking around the perimeter, and my husband's not, he felt something tap him on the shoulder going, it's going to be a little bit of a show, so just so you're aware. It kicked off. I was like, yeah, there's stuff going on. There's Indigenous Aboriginal people that have been looking after this land and continue to look after this land. And yes, we've lost a lot of it. But it feels like really potent that it's time. So anyway, thank you so much for everybody for popping on. Have a gorgeous week. Let this settle in, and yeah, let's get to work. Let's not feed the fear. Let's just focus on our hearts and bring our dreams to fruition. What do we want to see in this world? Okay, how do we want this world to be? Thank you, Alicia. Lovely to see you. Lovely to see you, everybody. So many familiar faces. Thank you so much for joining me. Sending you lots and lots of love, and I will see you all next week, if not before, because you know I like to drop in midweek. Can't help myself. All right, sending you all lots of love. Take good care. Bye.